One thing the city may be turning on, and this may be a little bit of a pendulum swing, is renaming Dundas Street. They may be reconsidering this. When this was voted through from the executive committee that they were going to change the name this year, by the way, there's only 3.5 months left in the year, and I haven't heard about a name change yet, John Tory said this to the public.
What we cannot have is a situation where everybody puts in a petition with however many signatures they may have, suggesting streets all over the place or other parks or other things just get renamed because somebody's upset about something.
That sounds like everything that we do now is somebody's upset about something, so we listen to them even if 98 people are not upset and one person's neutral and one person's upset, we listen to the upset person. It feels that way, but maybe we're swinging it back around the other way. Jennifer Dundas is kind enough to join me now, and she is very opinionated on the idea of changing, well, it's her last name, but Dundas Street and all things Dundas, and she's kind enough to join me now. It's great to have you on. I'm glad I was able to come across your messaging on this, because I think you speak for a lot of people who are wondering about the emphasis on this and the need for this.
Well, thanks, Greg, for having me on. And I have to say that if I looked at that research that the city did and decided that it was true and accurate, I wouldn't have said a word about this. The reason I stepped into this was that, in my view, that research was so egregiously bad that the family had to step forward and try to set the record straight because no one else was brave enough to do it. If you'll recall, this came into being in 2020 at the height of the aftermath of the George Floyd murder, and emotions were running very high. And then a year later, when council voted on it, 2021, there was the brand new information about possible graves of missing Indigenous children. And so emotions were running high. Both times this came before council, and nobody really wanted to stand up and say, you've got your facts wrong, but it's been up to the family to do that.
Yeah, we're 3 years removed from that, and I think there's some really practical, important, ethical things and lessons that we should take from those 36 months ago. But in the case of Henry Dundas, you're right. There's many people that have challenged the record. So this isn't necessarily about saying, hey, how are you going to find any good human being who was born in 1742 that's going to be a good human being under 2023? We might not be able to find somebody born in 1942, really, that's good under 2023 standards, Jennifer.
In fact, if you look at the history of what Henry Dundas did on social justice policy throughout his tenure in cabinet and as a politician in Scotland and in Britain, he stands up pretty well to scrutiny. He led the legal team that freed an escaped slave and convinced Scotland's highest court to declare that slavery was illegal. He literally ended slavery in Scotland. He proposed an achievable plan to end slavery and the slave trade together in the British colonies. And 30 years later, the leading abolitionists were saying we should have listened to Henry Dundas. He was right about that. He ordered Canadian governors to respect the equal rights of black soldiers. He appointed two abolitionists to key positions in Upper Canada. There was John Graves Simcoe and William Osgood, and between them they ensured the passage of the Empire's first anti-slavery legislation anywhere in the Empire. I mean, it does go on. He ordered the military to protect the Indigenous nations and the right to occupy their traditional hunting grounds and the other grounds that they needed to sustain themselves. Every time it came down to, making a call on human rights, he did come down on the right side.
Let's talk about the practicality of this, Jennifer. Why do you think the city just seems to be slowly tiptoeing away from this? Some might point to money. It always gets down to money, and it's being pointed at how expensive this would be. Beyond all the history of it, we've had 3 former mayors come out and say, we need to revisit this a little bit, and we may have been overreactionary. But why do you think there's a little bit of a tiptoe backwards on this front?
Well, I think one of the reasons that the former mayors have been emboldened on this is that the academic commentary on this, including in peer-reviewed scholarship, has strongly condemned the statement of facts on which the city made its decisions. Now, the mayors, between them, they have over 50 years' experience in elected office, and they are respected, progressive-minded individuals. So they were emboldened, I think, by seeing that there was good evidence that the city had its facts wrong. And I don't think they were so much motivated by the money here. The other things have to do with indications of how much it's going to cost, but in proportion to the benefit. I mean, $8.6 million is just for the city's direct costs. The city has also promised to fully compensate businesses who have to rebrand and undertake all kinds of additional expenses to process an address change. That will probably double the total cost to the city if they are generous in compensating all costs that businesses have to face. And then there's the issue also of the province. The province will have costs, changing signs around Toronto on highways and so on, and also processing changes in driver's licenses.
Yeah.
And our information is that the cost to the province could be as high as $2 million.
I know I want to have a longer conversation with you at some point in time. I got about a minute here and change, but I think we've done a sloppy, messy, inaccurate job of teaching history. My dad agrees, and he taught history in high school his entire career. And I think we have had a bit of a whitewashed history. We didn't do a very good job learning about residential schools. We didn't do a very good job talking about our own, how would I put it, pimples and zits in terms of our leaders. And that said, I look and I go, history is awfully complicated. Abraham Lincoln, awfully complicated human being. John A. MacDonald, awfully complicated human being. Queen Elizabeth's awfully complicated. So I don't again, there's we're always going to be having these conversations, and people will have different opinions about historical figures.
I agree. And I think we do have to be a little bit more humble about how we judge figures from the past. And we have to do a lot more to rely on respected and reliable and accomplished historians to guide the facts on these matters.
But real quick, does this look like it's a dead thing, that it's not going to go forward? Would you say confidently now you don't ever expect the Dundas Street to get renamed?
I think it's looking highly questionable now. I think the city now has an off-ramp, which is that the academic commentary is increasingly saying you got your facts wrong. The mayors are saying former mayors saying there's a better way to spend this money. Yeah. And I think they will be looking for a way to shut this down.
Jennifer Dundas, loved making your acquaintance, loved having you on, and we'll certainly do it again and talk about this and other issues. Thanks for the time today.
Thank you, Greg.
Awesome to have you.